Hello world, my name is Klaus Rothel and I'm doing 100 innovation keynotes in 100 days. Today's number 82 and today I'm going to give an example of innovation in practice. I'm going to give you 10 fun ways of meeting new clients. Now, first off, let it be said, there are many different kinds of business. There are many different kinds of work. There are actually even more different kinds of work than there are of business. And what I'm going to say may not be relevant to everyone. If you're selling chewing gum, then maybe this is not the way to meet your end customers, but it might be a way to meet business partners or to meet stakeholders or shareholders or associates or new people you want to be allied with somehow. And even if it's not, maybe you'll get some inspiration. There might be something where you say, ha. So with no further ado, 10 fun ways to meet new clients, new partners, new whatever, to meet new interesting people that you might want to do projects with or do business with. And all of these have actually been tested in the real world, not all by me. Just so that's said, some of them, yes, I'm not going to divulge which ones necessarily, but they've all been tested. These are all things that have been done. It's not just free fantasy. First off, the random LinkedIn comment. This is something I really enjoy because LinkedIn, it's a nice professional platform. People write about their companies, their professional successes, their challenges, blah, 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 blah. One of the nice things about it is that you can take any article, any post, any comment, and just jump in there and comment. Write something insightful, write something funny, write something meaningful, share a resource, ask a question, do something. I found it surprisingly easy to connect with people over LinkedIn because there's no doubt about the agenda. The agenda is professional. And that means it's perfectly okay to comment on somebody else's thread, even if you don't know them, as long as you're respectful about it. So a random LinkedIn comment, I know this is not exactly rocket science, but I actually will say that this has been more effective than I thought it would be as a way of meeting new people and people you end up doing business with. The targeted article, let's say you have a blog or you run a website or you have a publication or something like that. There's nothing like reading about ourselves. Unless you're like really in the majors, unless you're Richard Branson or you're Brad Pitt or you're Angela Merkel or you're one of the real heavy hitters, then most of us are just not that used to other people writing about us or what we do. And we want to read it. So if you want to get into contact with somebody, write about them. Do a video about them. Invite them for your podcast. But that's different because if you do a targeted article, you can do it. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. I can write about anyone I choose on my blog. I can dissect their thoughts, their theories. And if I write something nice, well, there's a chance they're going to hear about it, especially if we have some contacts in common. Inviting them to a podcast, inviting them to a video series, inviting them to kind of speak at your conference, whatever it is, inviting them onto your platform is another nice thing. Again, unless you are really in the big leagues, there's a good chance they'll say yes, because we all want to take advantage of other people's reach. We all want to get our messages out there and get our voices heard. And unless we really are used to having big microphones, then somebody writing say, hey, do you want to appear on my podcast? Yeah, sure I do. So, and again, you can use this not just to get people there who will talk to you about their stuff, but you might just target people you want to work with. And then you talk with them, and if there's chemistry, you have a follow-up meeting and it goes places. I know people who do this, and they do it very successfully. I've done this. Works really nicely. So now we get into the kind of the fun stuff. This is one of my personal favorites, the first row at a conference. When you go to a conference, I know right now we're Corona, things are digital, it's different. But at a standard physical conference, there's often this, let's not sit in front and let's not ask questions. I am always in the front row. If I can. If it's full, if it's reserved, I'm not, of course. But I'm always as close to the stage as I can be. And if there's a chance to ask a question, I will ask a question. I will ask something that is usually smart. No false pretense here, usually somewhat insightful and usually a little bit provocative and always funny. And it'll open the floor for other people, but it'll also make them go, hey, what's that? And I've been at so many conferences where the host or one of the speakers is like, excuse me, who are you? Oh, that's good. Can we hear from you? And suddenly there's dialogue. And I've actually been approached. One of my favorite incidents was criticizing at a conference, Copenhagen Business School for how they did things. And that meant that some of the representatives from Copenhagen Business School who were there came to me afterwards and said, we should talk because we were provoked by what you said. So let's talk about how you can help us. And we ended up making a deal. And for some time, we were a growth partner. My company was a growth partner of the business school. Super useful, super good for both of us. Started with that front row question at a conference. Now, another one, and again, I suggest that if you do this sort of thing, you take a hard look at yourself and say, what's the ethical limits? What are the ethical boundaries? For me, how do I actually feel good about this? The reverse job application. If you go out there and you create a job application, the hope is that you'll get in both the people for the actual application, but maybe some secondary stuff. Let's say that you're in the coaching business. You coach, let's say you coach people who are job hunters. That's something you do. And you're also in your company or your organization looking for somebody to fill a position. Maybe it's a 3-month project position. Maybe it's a permanent one. Who knows? If you take the people who've been at the job interviews and you kind of keep an open line to them, who knows where those relationships are going to go? I'm not saying you should cheat people. You definitely shouldn't. You shouldn't have a fake job just to get them to be interested. You should do something that's real. But having a job application and looking at it as both a way to get a job, kind of get the person for the job, and for meeting people who you might want to sell to or work with or partner with, that's perfectly okay. The relevant gift. So this is a nice gift. I can send this to anybody I choose. And some people, if they receive it with a nice handwritten note, they'll say, oh, okay, a book. Oh, okay, fair enough. It goes. And others will say, oh, how interesting. And if they get some value from it, there's a chance that they'll say, this was nice. Maybe we should bring him in for a keynote. Maybe we should bring him in for a project or a workshop or something like that. Worst case, you've given something to somebody and it's nice. The relevant gift. Don't just give them stuff. Give them something that's relevant. That's also good. Then we get to some of the really fun and kind of, shall we say, creative ones. This is a favorite of mine. And I realize this list is just full of favorites, but I'm going to stop prefacing everyone with, this is a favorite, this is a favorite. Creating a narrow trade magazine for the people you want to hit. There was a story I saw at some point, and there was this guy who was, I think he was in the beer or something like that, and he said he'd started by figuring out who did he want to sell to, and then he wanted to sell to restaurants, and then he had created a trade magazine for that group of restaurants. I think it was Indian restaurants in England. And then when he'd established that, he's used that as a channel to get them to talk about buying his beer. Super, super interesting approach to it. First, you do something that serves your audience, that serves your potential clients, and then once you've established that relationship, then you say, by the way, we also do this thing. Very, very interesting. The business class flight. I've done this myself. It works if you manage to keep an interesting conversation. If you're not trying to sell, but are trying to explore, then you might just find people. My personal favorite on this one, and I know I'm going to mention favorite again, even though I promised not to, but it's because it's not favorite to do it. It's like, how? Justification, right? The Airbus A380 has a business class bar on board their flights. So you can actually get up from your seat, you go, and there's a bar. There's some sofas in the bar, like some seats you can sit on, you can hang out at the bar. Every time I've been on one of these flights, I have met people at those bars and connected with them. And because people who are on business class flights tend to have one thing in common, they're able to pay for a business class ticket, or their companies are able to pay for a business class ticket. So usually if you manage to strike up interesting conversation and you get to, what do you do for a living? If it's something that's interesting, then there's a good chance to add value. And plus, worst case, you just get to talk to some fun people. This, I wouldn't say you should just go out and buy business class tickets and hope for a kind of a hit and miss thing. But I do understand, having tried this in practice, seeing flights, especially business class flights, as a way to meet new people. It's a little bit more tricky when you're sitting in economy class next to a family of 3 and they really don't want to know who you are or what you're selling. I'm not saying go that route. I'm saying try it. See if there's opportunity. If there's not, then don't. But there's more than you might think. This in the cheaper version, and this is not something I've tried myself, but a friend of a friend did this with immense success and landed a job this way, like a full-time job, being a hitchhiker, finding a place. And he found this place where, like, okay, between this city and this city, there are a lot of single, especially men, not single, but like solo men in expensive cars with expensive jobs. And he'd stand there hitchhiking and he'd get picked up because some of these guys, especially guys, are like, they're on the road. They're not really afraid of hitchhikers being mad psychos. Nice privilege. And they'll pick up somebody and they'll have conversation. He was a good conversationalist. And he would always get to like, oh, so blah, blah, blah. We've talked. So what do you do? Well, I advise companies. Oh, funny that. My friend Torsten actually needs something like that. Maybe I should hook you up. Worst case, you've met somebody, you've had an interesting time with it. And what he did, he actually did this strategically. He would take time off from his calendar and he would hitchhike back and forth between these 2 cities and he would meet a lot of interesting people. One of them landed him a job. I loved that when I heard that story. This is also something I've done myself. If you go to an expensive workshop, it's a little bit like business class. People there have one thing in common. They've paid for an expensive ticket. Now, there was a workshop I went to a few years back with one of these like get rich schemes, and it cost some money. It wasn't crazy expensive, but it was not cheap either. And I thought everybody who's there, they'll have 3 things in common. One, they want to earn money because this was like one of these get rich by trying schemes. Not fast or easy, but get rich. It was real estate investing. 2, they'll be open to something new that they don't really know what is. And 3, they'll have paid money. So I thought, these might be interesting people for our events, our kind of high-scale live-action role-play events, and for our business conference, our business development conference. And lo and behold, what happened? Not only did I get to meet some cool people, one of them became a friend, and that friend, here a couple of years later, actually was the person, one of the people at least, he's one of 2 owners of the company that bought the house that Sue and I now live in on Bornholm, because he's in real estate. And when I said, we'd like to get a house, but we can't find anybody to lend us money because of the debt. We can pay for it, sure, but we can't find anybody to lend us. I said, you know what? Let me take care of that. I can buy it and you can rent from me. And that was a guy I met at an expensive workshop and connected with there. Super nice guy, by the way. Ulrich, if you're listening. That was Ulrich. I was thinking, should I say something more nice, but he's probably not listening. And if he is, Ulrich, you're an awesome guy. The rest of you, Ulrich is an awesome guy. That was the 10. That was the 10 tips. But there are 3 extra here. And these come into the slightly outrageous zone, but that means this is also the stuff I really, really like. Again, all real. The first one, and this is insidious, because this is playing on, shall we say, the vanities of especially men. It's called the promotional party goers. Now imagine that you're at a bar, you're at some upscale bar in, it could be Berlin, it could be New York, it could be Shanghai, it could be anywhere in the world. You're at this upscale bar and there's a party, and again, this could be done with any gender, but in this case it was actually done by women. There is a group of women and they're having fun. They're celebrating something. There's champagne, there's silly hats. It's obvious they're having a good time for some reason. And of course what happens? Some nice-looking guy, nice-looking suit, expensive watch, goes over and like, oh, ladies, what are you celebrating? Maybe he's got a friend or 2 with him, but he makes contact. They say, oh, we're celebrating that Tina's boyfriend just landed a new deal. So we're out celebrating that with like, oh, Tina's new boyfriend landed a new deal. Who's Tina? Oh, I'm Tina. Oh, okay, that's cool. You seem to be having fun. What does your boyfriend do? Oh, he's a upscale consultant, or he's a investor, or he's an entrepreneur, whatever it is. And suddenly, even though the guy comes over wanting to make contact with the party women, he ends up actually asking a little bit because he gets curious, because who wouldn't be? Who's this boyfriend you're celebrating? What does he do? Oh, okay. And before it's over, he's been slipped a business card. And when he goes home, he's like, better check out what this guy actually does. And if that's interesting enough, then you have a new trail. Plus, in this case, it was a nice way for the boyfriend to sponsor some nights out for his girlfriend and some of her friends. Nobody lost. It was fun, but a little bit untraditional. Speaking of untraditional, the Lamborghini Owners Club. So imagine that you buy a Lamborghini. Or even better, that you lease one because you can't really afford to buy one. So you lease a Lamborghini. It costs some absurd amount of money because Lamborghinis are not exactly cheap. And then you go to some luxury rental car company and say, hey, I've got a Lamborghini. Do you want to rent it from me so you can rent it out to customers? And they say, sure, we'll do that, because that's the thing that exists. So now you're paying for the lease and you're getting money in from this rental company. Now, those two don't match up. So you're losing money every month and you don't have the car. So this is not about you showing up to meetings in a fancy car and that leads to new business. No. You don't have the car and you're losing money every month. What do you have? Well, you're technically now, since you're leasing the Lamborghini, you are permitted to be part of the Lamborghini's Owners Club, which has events, some places in the world. It has online forums, that sort of thing. Now, who else is a member of the Lamborghini Owners Club? People with money. People who like flashy stuff. And suddenly, for a decently small price, compared to actually owning one, you're in that club. You get to go to those meetings. You get to go to those events. You get to rub shoulders with people who have money. And suddenly it's like, oh, hi, I'm an investor. Or, oh, I'm in consulting. Or, oh, I'm in real estate. Whatever it is. And now you're talking with people who have money to potentially hire you, or partner with you, or sell your product, whatever it is you're looking for. And finally, I love this, and when I heard of this, I was bowled over laughing. So this is a story about a guy who had dreamed of for years of going on a safari in Africa, like one of these expensive luxury trips with his wife. They'd had this dream for years, and then they finally went. Spent a lot of money on it, and they went on this trip, and it was one of these all-inclusive luxury private guide, small group of people. Quite expensive. And as they meet the other people and they go out, they have the experiences, of course they talk. You talk with the people you're on the trip with. And they ask him, so what do you do? Oh, I'm a painter. Oh, let me see some of your stuff. Oh, gets it up on the phone, shows website, shows a couple, oh, can you paint this? Or I'd like to order one. What's your price range? And after that trip, he found out he'd sold so many paintings on that trip that they did it again. And after number 2, they realized, let's just do this. So since then, and I don't know if he's still doing it, but because this is a halfway old story, but since then, the guy and his wife, they go on 4 safaris a year, which they enjoyed. Who wouldn't? And he'd sell paintings. Because imagine that you are decently well off and you want to buy some new artwork for your home. Do you want the painting that you found at some gallery? No. You want the painting you found at a gallery in Paris or in Tokyo? Sure. But even better, from the artist you met on a safari somewhere in Africa. That's the painting you want to tell your friends about. When they ask, oh, that new thing, Where have you gotten that from, Gerhard? Well, I mean, I met this painter on a safari. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, really nice guy. Met his wife, too. We really clicked. He's a really cool guy, and we're both into this wildlife thing. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, it wasn't even too expensive. I love that. And if I was an artist, and if I had kind of the money to take that risk capital, I would so do the safari thing. I love that. I love that way of thinking. Now, maybe none of these have appealed to you. Maybe you're thinking, what? This? Ha. But maybe some of them do. Maybe some of them you're thinking, okay, I can see some idea in this. Or if not precisely this, then some sort of version of it. Maybe there's a little bit of inspiration there. But no matter what, no matter if you're inspired, you're uninspired, you might even be disgusted or appalled, judgmental, you might be grinning and saying, yes, I know what to do. Order safari tickets now. No matter what. Thank you for listening.